morning, boys and girls. We're going to go over all of our letters that we've been learning. Okay, do you remember this letter? This is the one we're working on this week. What letter is this? This is the letter W. We have our capital W, our lowercase w. The W makes the W sound. W, like in wagon and web and walrus and watch and wedding and weather. We're going to be talking about weather later on today. W is for wagon, w, w, w. W is for wagon, w, w, w. And what letter is this one? That's the letter V. Remember our capital and lowercase v. The V makes the V sound, like violin and vase and valentine. V is for violin, v, v, v. V is for violin, v, v, v. Do you remember this one? This is the letter U. We have our capital U, our lowercase u. The U has two sounds. It makes the U sound like unicorn, or the sound like an umbrella. How about this one? This is the letter A. We have our capital A, our lowercase a, capital A for Ava, and A also makes the A sound like apple and alligator. How about that one? This letter is the letter J. We have our capital J for Jesus and Jason. Our lowercase j makes the J sound like jam and jelly and jar. What letter is this one? This is the letter T. We have our capital T, our lowercase t. T makes the T sound like television and teeth and toothpaste. T is for television, t, t, t. T is for television, t, t, t. What letter is this one? There's the letter C. We have our capital C, our lowercase c. The letter C makes the K sound, like cake and corn and carrots. C is for cake, k, k, k. C is for cake, k, k, k. And remember this one? That's the letter B. We have our capital B for Benjamin, and our lowercase b makes the B sound, like bus and baby and bubbles. How about this one? Remember that letter? That's our letter E. We have our capital E for Evelyn and Esme. We have our lowercase e. Remember the E can have two sounds. It sounds like E, like an Easter or eagle, and the S sound like egg and elephant and elevator. And what about that one? That's the letter O. Remember the O is like a circle. So we have our capital O. Our lowercase o could be the O sound like ocean, or like an octopus. Okay, owl also begins with the letter O. What letter is this one? That's the letter D. We have our capital D and our lowercase d. D makes the D sound like duck and daddy and dog. And what about that one? That's the letter F. We have our capital F, our lowercase f. The F makes the F sound like fish and fingers and feathers and french fries. And what about this one? P. This is the letter P. We have our capital P for Penelope Pig, and our lowercase p makes the P sound, P, like in panda and popcorn and puppy. What about this letter? There's the letter I. We have our capital I for Ivana, and our lowercase I can have two sounds. The I sound like an ice cream, or the I sound like an iguana. And how about this one here? This is the letter G. We have our capital G for God, and our lowercase g. The G makes the G sound like God and goat and girl. G is for goat, G, G, G. G is for goat, G, G, G. What letter is this one? That's the letter H. We have our capital H and our lowercase h. The H makes the sound like house and happy and heart. And what about this one? Remember that? That's the letter L. We have our capital L and our lowercase l. L makes the O sound. And what about this one? That's the letter Q. Remember the capital Q looks like a capital O with a tail. And the lowercase q looks like kind of like the G, but it curves to the right. Q makes the qu sound like quilt and queen and quiet. And what is this one? This is the letter K. We have our capital K and our lowercase k. Remember, the K also makes the k sound like the letter C. And what about this one? This is the letter M. We have our capital M and our lowercase m. M makes the sound like mitten and Mary and mommy. And what about this one? That's the letter R. Here's our capital R. Our lowercase r makes the sound like rope and rhinoceros and run. And what about that one? That's the letter N. We have our capital N for Nico and Nicolette. We have our lowercase n. The N makes the N sound like nest and noisy and nose. N is for nest. N is for nest. And what about this one? Remember that letter? Yeah, that's the capital S. And our lowercase s, the S makes the sound like sandwich and soup and socks. S is for sandwich. S is for sandwich. And we're back to the letter we're working on this week. What is that letter? W. Okay, remember the W makes the W sound. Now we said that W begins with things like wagon and web and walrus and wedding and watch and weather. And there's a big fruit that also begins with the letter W. Does anybody know what this is? What is that a picture of? Do you know what this big green fruit is? Have it upside down. Yeah, that's a watermelon. Okay, how many of you like watermelon? I love watermelon. Okay, watermelons are very, very big fruits. And what color is a watermelon? Green. Okay, now some fruits grow on a tree, like apples and oranges, and other fruits grow in the ground. Now, a watermelon is very big and very heavy, so a watermelon does not grow up on a tree. A watermelon grows on the ground, and if you can look here, you'll see these big, giant leaves and a big, big stem. It's called a vine, because a watermelon grows along the ground. You can see the dirt down here, or the soil, and a watermelon grows. It starts from a little seed, and it's planted, and it grows on the ground, grows along the ground on a vine. It's got these big, big leaves, all right? So this is the outside of a watermelon, and sometimes watermelons are kind of striped on the outside like that, with different color greens. Sometimes you'll see it shaped like an oval. Sometimes they're smaller or they're round, but they're usually pretty big and they're usually pretty heavy. Okay, so that's a watermelon, and watermelon begins with a W, and the inside of a watermelon looks like this, okay? The inside of a watermelon, it's like that reddish color. You see the seeds, and this is what the inside of the skin looks like, all right? So we're gonna do something with a watermelon today. First thing we're gonna do, let's take this paper here, okay? And we're gonna be tracing the watermelon, and we're gonna be tracing the letter W. All right, so that's the first thing we're gonna do. And our paper says W is for watermelon, all right? So the first thing we're gonna do is take our black crayon, take your black crayon, and we're going to trace very carefully right on the outside of the watermelon, all right? So let's do your very best. Hold your paper with your helping hand so it doesn't move, and we're gonna try to go right on the dotted lines, okay? Very carefully. Looking at your paper, start at the top, and you're gonna trace right on the dotted line, slowly and carefully. Look at your paper, and now we'll do the other one on this side, okay? Right on the dotted line, slowly, carefully, take your time. Look at your paper, and I'm going to come around the bottom, okay? The bottom part, this is this part down here, okay? We'll come around the bottom very slowly and carefully. Again, looking at your paper. Take your time, because you want to stay right on those lines. Okay? And then we'll do the bottom part down here. Very carefully. All right, now on the inside, you know what these little things are called? These little black things in here, you know what those are? Those are seeds. Okay, if you plant the seeds, they'll grow into a watermelon. So these are the seeds. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to take our little crayon and we're going to just go around those little seeds very carefully. Very carefully. Just trace around those seeds. Okay. And there, we traced our watermelon. Okay, and then you can go back later on and you can color your watermelon if you want. Okay, so the outside would be green and the inside would be like a reddish color. Okay, and then your seeds would be black. Now down on the bottom we have our letter W. We're going to trace our W. Now remember the W, when we trace our W, it goes from the top. We're going to slant down, up, right? So we're going to do that on our paper here. We're going to start on the left at the top of our capital W, and we're going to trace down and up, down and up. Okay, now the lowercase w starts in the middle, and we're going to do the same thing. Very carefully looking at your paper, trace down and up, down and up. Okay, let's move over to the next set. Let's do our W again. Start with the capital W at the top of the line. Slant down and up, slant down and up. Okay, and let's do our lowercase w. Slant down and up, slant down and up. And one more set. You ready? Let's try it one more time. Slant down and up, slant down and up. Okay, and we'll do one more. Down, up, down, up. So what letter does watermelon start with, boys and girls? The letter W. Okay, so there's one more thing we're going to do with the letter W and a watermelon. All right, so we're going to take this paper here. Okay, and again, they have W on the top and watermelon, the word watermelon's down on the bottom. So what we're going to do is first we're going to trace again our letter W that's down on the bottom of the page. We're going to trace that with our black crayon again. We're going to trace that. We're going to slant down and up, down and up. And then the lowercase w, down and up, down and up. All right, so now this is a nice slice of a watermelon. Now this is a big slice of watermelon. And this is shaped kind of like what? What shape is that kind of like? Yeah, it's kind of shaped like a triangle. Okay, so we're going to do something with this. We're going to be using some paint. So if you have any black and green paint, then get that. And what we can even use when we're painting, you don't really need a paintbrush for this because there's a little space. You can actually use these little Q-tips. Okay, we're going to paint with those. So if you have black and green paint, get that, or you get two little Q-tips if you have it. If not, then you can just use a black and a green crayon, which is fine also. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do, I'm going to move this over to the side, and I'm going to put just a little bit of paint on my little dish here. So we're going to use black for the seeds, and we're going to use green for the rind, the skin of the watermelon. So like I said, if you have paint, you can paint. If you don't have paint, that's fine. You can just use your crayons and it'll be just as good. Okay? So this is what we're going to do. On the seeds up here, these little raindrop shaped things, okay? Those are the seeds, and we know that our seeds are going to be what color? The seeds are going to be black. So with your Q-tip, if you're painting, take the tip of your Q-tip and just dip a little bit into the paint, okay? And we're going to do right inside those little seeds there, okay? You just need a little bit on the end of your end of your Q-tip. You just need a little bit. And it's always a good idea to start from the top, because this way you don't want to put your sleeve into the paint. So if you start at the top, you work your way to the bottom, you don't have to worry about getting paint all over you, okay? So you to a little bit each time. All you need is a little bit right on the tip of your Q-tip. Okay? And if you don't have a Q-tip, if you have a brush, that's fine. And like I said, you can always just use a crayon and use your black crayon for the seeds. If you want to just use a black crayon, that's fine too. Okay? So we have our seeds. All right, so there's our seeds. And now we're going to do our green, which is going to be this part down here, these two little lines under here. Okay, that's going to be the outside part of our watermelon. So we'll do the same thing with our green. Take a little green, and we're going to go across. Okay, these two sections on the bottom here are going to be the rind or the skin, the outside part of the watermelon. Okay, we don't eat the outside part of the watermelon. We only eat the inside where the pink is. Okay, you don't really want to eat the seeds either. Okay, you might get a real bellyache if you eat the seeds. You don't want that to happen. We certainly don't want a watermelon growing in your belly. You think that could really happen? No, I'm teasing you. But you can get a bellyache if you eat the seeds, so you don't want to do that. Okay? All right, so we're going to paint across. And now that the weather is getting warmer, pretty soon, maybe in another couple of months, we'll start seeing some watermelon at the store, so we can buy some fresh watermelon and we can have that. Okay, so we have W is for watermelon.